We are live, baby! Welcome to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. That's James. That's Lacey. Oh, I did it. I did the points in the right directions. It's going to be a good show. Welcome, everybody, to the show. We have a, as they call, fire episode for you all tonight because there is some big-time Star Wars news that we're going to talk about. So I am very excited. So first off, I just want to say hello to the two of you. How are you doing? And are you as fired up as I am to talk about all the stuff I'm looking at right here on these show notes?
I am. I'm way fired up.
You guys always like I tee up the excitement, and then you're like, yes, very excited.
Yeah, I think that I said in the chat, our own personal chat, I was like, this week is crazy that we have this much news to talk about.
I'm super hyped. I don't say anything because I know James goes first. So I always let him go first. So that's me being polite. But I'm so hyped. I'm so excited. We got so much stuff this week. It's good to be a Star Wars fan again and like have news. And we're not like, what if Luke Skywalker had 3 hands? Here's our top 10 ideas if he had 3 hands.
Yeah.
Because it gets a little dry sometimes when you don't have any news or anything to discuss. So
we're going to dissect scene by scene this episode of Young Jedi Adventures.
So at least second week of January, we've gotten enough news to last us for a bit of time. And there's it only means that there's more to come. So that's really, really
and actually I just saw Young Jedi Adventures coming back on Valentine's Day.
It's so cute.
Very cool. I know your daughter liked watching it a lot, and
she's a coloring book. Dollar Tree. They have Jedi Adventures coloring books. Yeah,
the palette itself is just like one of those things like when kids see like Pixar, it just like looks very shiny and bright, and it's like, I must stare. But I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you're joining us live or you're listening on your favorite audio podcast app, thank you so much for being a part of TRB. It means a great deal to us. We always have a good time here, and we're glad to do that with you. We are going to get to the news in a little bit. And if you have any Star Wars questions that you would like us to discuss on the show, pop it in the chat. Use hashtag #AskTheResistance so we know that that question isn't just like, I don't want it on the show. I just want to ask this. Is that okay? So use the hashtag. We'll tag it up, get it onto the list, and hopefully get to that later. And of course, we have super chats. If you want to light speed your way to the front of the list, that is allowed. So we have all that going on. We do have a little bit of an opener here, but before we do that, I just want to let everyone know I have a major announcement for everybody. Because of scheduling conflicts, Pedro Pascal is actually going to reportedly be playing Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four. So I will actually be taking on the role of the Mandalorian in the Mandalorian movie. Jon Favreau heard. I was a big fan of his ever since Swingers. He's money and he doesn't even know it. And to prove it, I have this mask. So if anyone's doubting me, watch. I bet it even fits. Hold on. Let's see. Ow, ow, oh, that hurt. See that? I am the Mandalorian. What do you think about that? You like that?
I have one right here.
Lacey is the stunt double.
Does yours say, good luck, John, you're going to crush it, love John Francis Favreau inside?
I was actually going to say, John, it sounded like you were about to say something either really depressing or like real big news for you. I thought you were about to say you were going to have another kid. Like the way that your tone was going, I was like,
I have a major announcement. I was in another car accident. And
like
my rental car is totaled.
Yeah. I got another car, so I'm back on the road. I got a YT 1300 and we're ready to roll. But I wanted to bring this up because I saw that D23 obviously coming back this August, and they said they're going to do a partial stream, which means none of the good stuff. But they are going to do some partial streaming. But jokes aside, do you guys think that there's any chance that they'll stream announcements, not necessarily the footage they show, but maybe some cool announcements, sort of like, when Obi-Wan came out or Ewan came out to announce Obi-Wan? Lacey, you're big on these conventions, so I'll just toss this to you as our opener before we get into the news. James, obviously, I want your thoughts on this too. But Lacey's our convention guru. So what do you think about D23 saying they might do some partial streaming? And you know that's going to make people go crazy when Star Wars Celebration comes next year and they don't stream anything.
Right. I think actually this is a great idea because it'll let more people in on what's going on. And then it could also sell some Disney Plus subscriptions because people might sign up for it just to get, you know, that event and then they'll drop. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. I'm going on a family vacation that week, so I won't be at D23, but it will be nice to check up on what's going on via digitally and not just have to scroll on Twitter or whatever other social platform that you're using to be like, okay, what's the latest update? You can actually watch the recaps yourself. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I hope they do it for more shows because it's not easy to go to these shows and it's not always, you know, cost effective for a lot of people.
Yeah, true. James, what do you think? You're a Disney dude. Disney dudes on partial streaming. What do you got on this one?
So I kind of had two thoughts about this, and the first one was that the D23 membership like recently went out, and it was like you could sign up for D23, you know, at this price or whatever, and here's what you get. And I looked at all of it, and like for me and my wife, we were like, none of that seems interesting for the price. And so, like, I know it's a little bit different, but it feels weird to be like one of the things on that list was like you might get invited as a fan to like an exclusive, you know, stuff, whatever. And then later, a few weeks later, they're like, we're just going to put a bunch of the stuff on Disney Plus. And it's like, oh, so we didn't need to buy anything. Good thing we didn't buy anything because now D23 is coming to us. The other thing I thought is that I don't actually think this is really that crazy, though. I imagine this will be very similar to what they do on like ABC Christmas, where they just bring in like, you know, Megan Trainor and like, you know, whoever, or like these artists that were former Disney stars and now they're like, you know, remarkably successful, or you know what I mean.
What was her song? What was her the hit? What was her hit again?
I'm all about the bass.
She's had a few. But anyway,
made you look or something like that, right?
Yeah. But anyway, I think it's probably just one of these things where they're like, they'll stream maybe some of these live performances or things like that. But I don't think you're going to get anything like announcements or any in-depth interviews or panels or things like that. I think this is more of another way for somebody to say like, oh, well, D23 is going on and I have Disney Plus. So I'll put this on and then like, I can feel like I'm there, but it's sort of it's just a big commercial for
so what
actually
you're saying
going.
Is at D23, they won't show it to the stream, but they will show the full filmed and edited and produced scene of the spider baby head from Rise of Skywalker to the people just
don't even joke about that puppet that exists. I hope they didn't destroy it. I really do, because it's so epic.
It's probably in Neil Scanlon's like backyard.
I hope so. Neil, let us know if you saved that puppet, please.
Send it to TRB.
Oh my god, he's like the coolest guy ever. That's one thing I learned from Celebration is like he's even cooler than you think he is.
A very sweet man. Yes.
Oh my god, the coolest.
All right. Before we get to the news, I know we do have some super chats. So first of all, thank you in advance. They may even just say like, John, I hate you, but thank you. So,
could you imagine?
I you know what, Lacey? I can imagine. But let's see what's cooking on the super chats.
First up is our buddy Diamond Figs. What's up, man?
Yo.
He said, "What's good, y'all? Interested to hear who y'all think the villain in Mando film will be. Thrawn, another Force user. Stay well, TRB." Diamond Figs, thank you so much for your message. We're gonna bring this back up at the end, because it is a question. So I want to save it.
We got to think of answers too.
For Ask the Resistance. So thank you so much. But I want to acknowledge you're the best, man.
Hope
we have
well.
Miles. Hey, Miles, how's it going, man? He said, any Outlaw Super Bowl trailer thoughts? I can quickly answer this. I don't think they're ever going to have a Super Bowl trailer for video games, right? Have they ever done that? That's an expensive
for video games.
For Star Wars video games?
Maybe not for Star Wars video games, although Jedi Survivor was pretty like spent the money on the marketing.
Miles, maybe at the Puppy Bowl we'll get some Outlaws trailers.
Yeah,
I just don't think Outlaws is gonna like spend that money for the Super Bowl.
I don't even think we would get like an Acolyte trailer at the Super Bowl because they did that for Solo. Yeah.
I loved that trailer. Everybody hated
it. But that was 50% of what they did. They spent all their money on that, and then that was it.
I know.
That and Denny's. They spent all their money.
Denny's. Yeah. Thank you, Miles. Appreciate it, man.
And it wouldn't be an episode without Freezy2324. Thanks, man. He said, TRB. Will we see Han, Luke, and Leia in the Mando movies? We're going to hold on to that question, Freezy, and come back to it. But I wanted to acknowledge your super chat question. So we'll come back. But we want to say, hey, how's it going? And that's it for now. All
right. We have a lot of news to get into. So we need to just stop wasting time because it's just out of control at this point. But thank you again to everybody joining us live. If you saw a post of ours, whether that's on Threads or Facebook, Instagram, I think we're live on Instagram now also, or X, share it and let people know to come on in. Let's see if we can get the live count up over 100. Maybe if it gets to 200, I'll buy someone a Black Series Balin Skull. How about that? 200 people live watching out of my pocket. Balin Skull heading to your house. Anyway, it's time for the news, James. So let's fire up the Resistance report.
It's the Resistance.
Huge announcement. Get ready. Here it comes. Hope everybody's currently on StarWars.com right now. Because that was about the extent that they went to, other than retweeting this news. But hey, we're getting a new movie titled The Mandalorian and Grogu. This announcement went out and it said it's going to continue the stories of these two characters. It's going to be written, directed by Jon Favreau, as well as produced by Jon Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy, and Dave Filoni. All three of them working on that one. And there were some good comments from Jon Favreau, things that we already understand about him, you know, loving to be able to work in the world of George Lucas, and it's an honor to bring these characters to the big screen. It's pretty straightforward stuff. Yeah, this is pretty big news. They also dropped a little thing in there too about Ahsoka season 2. I think they wanted to boost up a little bit about Dave Filoni there at the end.
Let's separate those.
Yeah, we'll separate that, but I just throwing it in there. But yeah, this was a pretty crazy story, and I'll kick it off with John on this one. What do you think about this whole story? I mean, we just open it up, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because if you had just given me the exact same, you know, article, press release, announcement, and had, you know, Dave Filoni is directing whatever, I would have said, "Oh wow, that's interesting. Okay, I'm down. I'm surprised. You know, we'll see what this becomes." But the fact that it's Jon Favreau, I am very excited because he's a proven, established, successful filmmaker, also a very good writer. He knows all genres. If you look at his catalog in terms of his directing, you know, independent small film chef, major massive Halloween Christmas comedy and Elf, Iron Man. He started the MCU, took a chance on Robert Downey Jr., knocked it out of the park. I don't know if the MCU takes off or becomes what it is without that being the first success. And of course, then you had the live action, you know, Jungle Book, Lion King. The guy's made billion-dollar movies for this company. It's just a no-brainer. So him directing it, this has been his baby. He wanted to do this show for forever. He wanted it to be a Boba Fett show, but this is his project ultimately. I know people always say Filoni, but this is Favreau's deal. And I love the fact that he is coming on to direct it, because he could have easily have just passed and said, you know, give Rick a shot or bring in another director or something. He's like, nope, I'm in. Let's do this. Let's complete this story, which leads me to my other point. I've heard rumblings about, is this now season 4? But then you hear reports on some of the trades saying, no, season 4 is still happening. So I think season 4 is still happening, and I bet they're going to film it this year. And they'll probably film a couple of scenes for the movie while they're filming season 4. Then I think after season 4 is when this movie will come out in 2026. I imagine season 4 will come out in 2025. They'll attach some sort of trailer to the last episode or something like that. But the bottom line is, I think this movie is going to end the story of The Mandalorian. It's not going to be one of those things where we're going big, major motion picture, We're swinging for the fences, but then we're going to finish it on Disney Plus. I think this is going to be the big one to end the story of Din Djarin, not necessarily end the story of Grogu, but it may leave us with a cliffhanger as to where Grogu may go in the future. Maybe it's with Rey when he's older, who knows? But I am just very excited about this. And again, I think I'm more fortified by the fact that it's Jon Favreau directing it than anything. And my last point on it is Pedro Pascal. You know, people have, I think, been getting a little sour on him in that he's sort of just doing the voices, and we see him signing up to do all these other projects as in person on set. And I could see how, you know, Star Wars fans may feel a little miffed by that. Like, oh, you're not good enough to show up on our set to do our stuff, but you want to go over there. But I think now that this is a major motion picture, feature film, Jon Favreau directing, I think he's going to figure out a way to be on set for this one, which means we're probably going to get some pretty deep scenes, including Din Djarin unmasked, which I think is something that was missing in season 3 of The Mandalorian after we got not a lot, but very impactful scenes with Pedro Pascal on screen in season 1 and season 2. Season 3, you know, we were missing that. And I think this movie, we're going to get that as the final sort of appearance of Pedro as the Mandalorian. So I'm all in. I'm very excited for it, and I can't wait.
This is kind of a tough story because for me, because there's a lot that I'm like, I've been saying this is not a good idea for a very long time. Like, I have been the one that's like, I just can't wrap my head around why you have a show that's behind a paywall go 3 or 4 seasons and then expect people to come to the theater. And I get that Baby Yoda is huge and that's a good way to get people in, but you're also just assuming that people just don't know the characters and that they've seen the show. I told somebody about this at work. I said, hey, did you hear about the movie that's coming out? It's called The Mandalorian and Grogu. And he goes, Grogu? And I was like, yeah, it's the Baby Yoda. And he's like, oh, right. And I'm like, the title doesn't even, people don't even know who that character is, like, by the title. But my
your
first
friend at
thought
work doesn't. But
My
that doesn't
daughter
mean
does.
people know, you know?
Grogu.
No, you think more people know the name Grogu than Baby Yoda? That's what I'm saying. More
I think people know the name
Baby
by
Yoda.
now is what I'm saying. I think your friend at work doesn't know, but I don't think he's like the representative of like everybody.
No, I think a lot of people, when I say, I still hear people say Baby Yoda all the time, and I'm like, do you
Oh,
know
and they're
his
going to
name?
use that in marketing. They'll say Baby Yoda all day, you know, to get people in there.
Like
But
other people will, yeah.
Yeah.
My first thought on this, though, when I saw that it was directed by Jon Favreau, was that thought, oh, well, that's where Jon Favreau is. That's what he's doing. Because we got that announcement at Celebration it was like, oh, it's the Mandalorian Thrawn movie, or, you know, the Mandoverse is ending sort of in this big climactic event, and it's Dave Filoni. And I'm like, why isn't Jon attached to that? What is going on with Jon? Why is he not have any part in this? I'm good for Dave, but where's Jon? What is he doing? And this answers that question, because Jon's they said we're gonna, Mandalorian is so big, we're gonna make it 2 movies. We're gonna give Jon the first one to set it up, and we're gonna let Dave finish it. I don't know why it wasn't announced in like reverse order. You know, like why they didn't bring Jon out on stage and then later Dave. I don't know, maybe it was Celebration or something. We could talk about that. But man, I have a lot to talk about this, but I want to hear Lacey's thoughts, because I know she can definitely sandwich. I was kind of negative, sandwich the positivity a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm hyped. I first want to say that I was right. I said this years ago that a Mando movie was coming. Come on, I have to have my credit, because John always goes on and on about Rey Skywalker. I'm getting my moment. I'm taking it. I was right about one thing. I'm never right about anything in Star Wars, like ever. Go back and listen to some of my podcasts like early on. I'm a moron. But this time I got it right. So
well, now you got 2 things right. No, I'm just kidding.
I will take it and enjoy this moment.
I think you get a lot right. Don't you? Like, I'm the one that probably gets the least amount of stuff right.
Oh, right? I don't know. I don't keep track. I just know that
you feel like you don't get very much right.
I've gotten this right and Fennec Shand right. That's what I've gotten right.
That's fair.
Because Fennec Shand being alive, I was the only one that's like, she's alive. She's not looking at the camera.
What do you?
And everyone.
What are you most hyped about it?
Oh, I wasn't finished actually talking. I was just going on. Anyway, I am super hyped that Jon Favreau is doing it. He has so much, as John went through his whole list of things that he's done. He's so charismatic. I love everything about him. He's great. And he's proven time and time again that he can take something that he really, really cares about and make it into a blockbuster smash of a movie. So I have no worry that he's going to do an amazing job with this. To kind of comment on James's comment about why did he start it and not end it, I think John's good at starting things, and I think Dave isn't necessarily great at starting things.
Oh, no, that's not my comment. It was, why didn't they announce Jon Favreau at Celebration?
Oh, because I don't think
and
they
then
wanted
save Dave Filoni for later.
Because I think they wanted Dave to have
did
his
in reverse.
moment because they were doing Ahsoka.
I don't think this
didn't-
was decided then. That was almost.
or
a year
maybe it
ago.
wasn't undecided.
I mean, yeah, there's probably a couple things there, but like I said, I just was thinking maybe when they were like building this up, they were like, oh, we're just going to do 2 movies. We're going to let John start it, obviously, like what you're saying, correct, and then Dave finish it. But then I would think that decision would have been made to have this show or this movie, I mean, happening around the same time Dave's was being decided as well. So I guess I just don't understand why, but maybe not.
Yeah, Kyle made a good comment in the live chat that said that he thinks it's definitely a restructuring decision post strikes to strike back to theatrical and a little less so on streaming. And I agree. And we know Bob Iger has very much been pushing for more movies than streaming. But I agree with James. It is a little weird that like they wouldn't announce it at Celebration, but that clearly I think also backs up what Kyle is saying here and John's saying, obviously on the show, that they've decided this later on, because it seems like a little bit of a later announcement that they figured out.
Like, are you doing a Mandalorian movie? And Bob asks, and then they're like, yeah, we're doing it. It's not coming till, blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, no, we're getting railed here. Like, we gotta move this up like immediately. And they're like, well, Dave, we're still gonna let Dave do his thing, but let's go ahead and put a Mandalorian movie in theaters.
Yeah. And we made this comment back at Celebration. I know this from standing 2 feet from him. He looked really not happy, Jon Favreau. Like when he was at Celebration, he didn't look like he was having a good time. He did when he was on stage talking about Skeleton Crew with the kids. But when I saw him like down doing work, about to do a dress rehearsal for the show, he was walking by me when I was at the show store and going down to the panel room. He did not look happy. So, and he also like looked like he had lost weight. He had like his hair was much grayer than I'd seen him previously. Like it was.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but as someone that just had a kid and just dyed her hair because I had so many gray hairs, I know that gray hair comes with stress sometimes. So, maybe he might be a little stressed out. That being said, I'm so pumped for this movie. I can't wait for it to happen. I was also excited that on the bottom of the article, they did say that this was going on to the ongoing slate, which is the Rey movie, James Mangold movie, Dave Filoni movie, and who's also doing Ahsoka season 2. So I know there's been a lot of questions, and I had them myself of, okay, where does this fall into the other movies? Is now Dave not making a movie? So this is an addition to Dave's movie, and we're getting Ahsoka season 2. So give me all the Star Wars. This is awesome. This is all, but yet I haven't heard about Rian Johnson, haven't heard about Taika.
Oh,
so I'm just going to throw that out there too, because that's not on this slate. That's the wording they use now. The slate is, I don't know. It's weird.
I know when they announced the Filoni movie, everyone was sort of like, oh, it's the Mando verse, and everyone who was on the Favreau Filoni stuff are going to be in this movie. I think this movie here is telling us that the Mandalorian and Grogu are not going to be in the Dave Filoni movie, and Filoni's movie is going to be more of the Ahsoka-focused Rebels Thrawn stuff. I can't imagine them doing a movie for the Mandalorian and like completing this story and then telling another movie, and they're like, and Din Djarin's also in it, and he's a part of it. Like, I think his story's ending with this movie. Din Djarin.
Do you think he's dying?
I don't know about that. I mean, I could see that because you get those like Logan vibes, you know, the lone wolf and the cub thing. But even if he doesn't die, it's just, how do you have him have his own movie directed by the guy who developed the whole story, and then be like, but then after that, he's also going to just pop up over here. It feels a little bit sort of like we're going to have Luke
he's not the main
Skywalker.
character of that other movie, though.
Huh?
You're assuming that he's not the main character of the other movie.
He's not. I
He's
don't.
not.
That's just my opinion. I don't think he's gonna be a part of that.
Because they
I think
said it was a
the main
crossover
character,
culmination. I think it's
the main character. Yeah, the main character of Filoni's movie is going to be Ahsoka, and it's going to be the Rebels characters. Yeah, and I'm willing to do a pie bet on that.
And I think we talked about it last week with him on. I think he knew this announcement was coming out and kind of let it slip a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I don't
think it's the Mandalorian movie is part 1 and then the Filoni movie is part 2. I think it's its own. It's going to be the Mandalorian story, and then Filoni's going to do his movie with all the Rebels characters and the Thrawn stuff and all of that. And to think that we're going to get this big centrally focused Mandalorian movie, and
but then how is it a crossover?
I think they've changed all the plans, dude. Everything they said about Mando verses and crossovers all happened before this decision was made. A lot of things have changed. And I think Mandalorian, they're realizing how people felt about season 3. They're like, he got a little sidelined. We wanted the Mandalorian to be the Mandalorian. They hear what people are saying. They don't want him to just be a part of it. He's supposed to be the guy. And that's where they're like, wait a minute. So we have the most popular, transcendent, little cute character in the world, and we're not going to like centralize these two? What are we doing? They're like, you need to, like, Favreau, you got to come in here. You got to bring this guy back front and center. And I think that's a decision that was made quite recently. And then I think they're going to pivot a bit with Filoni's thing and just not incorporate Mando. Everyone else, Skeleton Crew, the Kale Organa, all those pirates, all that stuff, Thrawn, get it all in that Filoni movie. Make it weird, make it wild, make it the Rebels movie, whatever. This is going to be Mando's thing.
Really trying to make that Kale Organa thing go off, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
Really, really trying.
Everyone go see the Mean Girls musical out in theaters.
John, you also said something about timelines, and I was trying to figure that out because I'm bad with timelines. The movie is slated for 2025, or is it 2026? It is for 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So does that mean it's taking the Rey one in May, or they didn't specify when it was coming out
Well,
yet?
they never said the Rey was coming out first. We all just assumed it was.
No, they did.
I don't think they did.
I don't think they did. We did, and like trades did, but Lucasfilm never said on May blank 2026 it's the Rey movie. Like, so.
Oh, you're right. So they verified that the first one's coming out in May of 2026 after Avengers, which we were like, again. And yes, we kind of assumed it was the Rey one. Yeah, until they said Dave Filoni was like fully in it, and Rey hasn't read a script yet. So.
Which we'll get to all that stuff. I guess there's so much more to talk about Mandalorian and Grogu. We'll probably continue to talk about it for long to come.
But just one last thing on this. Yeah. Like, I know people are like saying like, well, the Mandalorian and it's a Disney Plus show, and I feel like this is a cop out and cash grab. Just erase everything from your mind. And the last Star Wars movie came out 5 years ago. Star Wars movies, that story's ended. And then someone tells you that Jon Favreau is directing a Star Wars movie with the Mandalorian in it. And just like think about that and put it in a little bubble. That's pretty cool.
That's what I thought, by the way. In the comments, Collecting Star Wars, thank you so much, said the director said that Rey movie's coming out first. That's where it came from.
Give her a call.
But she did say that. She said the next Star Wars. She said at Celebration. That's what it was. That's why it was kind of in our heads.
CNN said. I think CNN said that. CNN said that. She didn't say that.
No, I'm pretty sure she said the next Star Wars movie at Celebration.
And
that's why everybody
talking about two completely different things. Like that thing John's talking about was recent, like last week or the week.
I'm not talking about John's thing. I'm talking about at Celebration. She definitely made it like she was like, the next movie is my movie.
Interesting.
Well, they don't have there's no script yet. Let's get a script going.
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much to this, like all sorts of thoughts that I have on it. I want to continue talking about it, but we can't. We have too much this week, like we've been alluding to. So much news. And the next one, oh, you know what we never did that whole time? We never showed that image. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, the Mandalorian?
Yeah. That was the first look image. I was going to pull it up and then I completely forgot as we were talking about
it's so cool.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Just really quickly, do you guys think that is this just a general like something, or do you think this is like part of the idea? Like this is concept work based on something like, oh, we're gonna have a heist and he's gonna jump out of a ship, or do you think this was just like literally just make Mandalorian and Grogu do something cool?
I think Grogu figured out a way to do a human holdo maneuver, and they blast right through that ship, like him and Mando. They just blast right through that thing.
I guess. First of all, I want to give credit to Ryan Church, the artist that created this.
It's like
really awesome.
Beautiful.
Go follow him on social chat, like social platforms. I almost said Twitter chat. That's not a thing. Social platforms, because he posts stuff like this all the time, like concept art from shows and stuff that like didn't get used and stuff from all different types of movies.
It's very cool.
Yeah, I think it's just something that they probably came up with, like as a concept of, hey, this is going to happen, but I don't think it gives anything away because they wouldn't do that. I don't think.
We'll look back at it like 2 years from now and we'll be like, oh shoot, that's kind of a crazy image that they showed that part of the movie.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, remember that image?
Art. Yeah. But other than that, we have another big announcement. And like I said, it was kind of weird because they sort of slipped it into that one announcement about Mandalorian and Grogu. And everybody was like, so I guess that's confirmed then, but it was still a question mark. And I think the intent was that they wanted it to be known. So they later clarified, and to be straight with you guys, yes, in fact, we are saying Ahsoka season 2 is going into production or in development. And that is happening. And with that, we also got this image officially released.
Oh, I love a Dave Filoni sketch.
You see so many of them. I've seen so many at this point that I forget that he can still make them. I know it sounds weird,
so talented.
But like I feel like you see the images and you're like, oh my gosh, that was back in 2013. You know, when
I need a side photo of George Lucas's hand.
What?
Oh,
you think?
No, do you mean of him going like this?
No, I'm saying like that'd be funny if he used like an image of George Lucas pointing at something, like like when he was pointing at the design boards or something, and they're like, I'm gonna use George's hand for this.
So for anybody that hasn't seen this sketch online and the one that we're looking at because you're listening on audio, it is a small silhouette of Ahsoka and I presume Sabine, right? That's not Ezra.
Yeah,
I assume it's
Sabine.
Those two. It couldn't be Ezra. What am I talking about? On top of the sculpture that we saw out of the side of the mountain of the father pointing out into that distance, similar to where we saw Balin's skull at the end of the series. It looks like
how are they going to handle that?
And Sabine are now following him and moving forward, and all this to be said above their heads, written out in handwriting. It says the story continues ... So this is Dave Filoni saying, like, I am developing all of the ideas for this next season. Lacey, what are your thoughts on this? Yeah, Balin's skull, you were about to say.
I'm so excited. There was so much left to tell of this story, so the fact that we're getting more of it is awesome. I was worried for a little bit with the writers and actors strikes that something might be impacted, like this could be impacted, where they say, hey, we're not doing this anymore, or hey, we don't have the budget to do it, or we're making cuts, or we're making this cut. And it left on such a point that it was such a cliffhanger that you're like, where do we go from here? I need to know more. So the fact that we're getting that is just like perfect. That being said, like I I brought up before, I love Dave Filoni's sketches. I think he's super, super talented. He came from the animation side, so he just looks at everything with that lens. So I can't wait to see if he posts more throughout the process of this whole thing of like sketches of how the story is going. I think they should release a book of his sketches, like honestly, like an art book of Dave Filoni's sketches, because I'm sure they're everywhere. And from what we've heard from other people, like all actors and people that work with him keep the sketches that he does with them. I forget who it was that said they kept it. Was it Jon Favreau said he kept one?
I mean, it was. I think it was.
He was like, yeah, I just kept it. And then like you see shots of him, like the GIF that everybody uses of him when they're doing the music recordings and he's sketching Mando on like a piece of like music paper. It's just so talented.
It reminds you of like how when we were kids drawing on our textbooks, whatever, like just drawing like in our notebooks in school. Like, so,
yeah.
like,
And they're like, please don't write in the book. And John was like, you don't tell me what to do.
No, I mean like the grocery store paper bag on the
I'm joking. I'm saying people used to
covers?
sketch in the textbooks. Yeah, the book covers. But
I did that too. You're right.
I'm super hyped, and like I joked earlier, I think Amon knew that this was coming, and he kind of like let it go, like, "Oh, I'd love to see that," and then surprise. And I hope we get more behind the scenes stuff from the cast because they're just such a fun cast, and they're so excited to be a part of it. I have no idea where this story could go at this point, specifically with actors, because as we know, Ray Stevenson's not with us anymore, so. Who's going to take that on? How are they going to handle that? Because I think the only way they can at this point is to replace him. They can't not replace him. He's like the driving force of this storyline right now.
Mm-hmm.
That and the guy from Loki. Like,
what guy from Loki?
The guy from Loki that Marvel just dropped.
It's like, Jonathan Majors, but
yeah. It's like,
you mean how he was the major villain for like every Marvel movie,
and it's like you're gonna have to come up with some type of storyline where like the character just doesn't, some sort of reason why the character doesn't look that way anymore. Or something.
Marvel, they'll just be like, he went through the multiverse portal and he's now this version.
Maybe,
but this is a little trickier. This is a little trickier.
Maybe they might be able to he might be able to enter into something that he bathes in and it returns him to his youth or something. You know what I mean?
Are you talking about Baylan Skoll?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know who you were talking about.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, I mean like in a way, I think like if they really wanted to play around with the weirdness that Dave Filoni does and Rebels and some of that offshoot stuff where it gets a little weird, world between worlds and stuff, you might be able to go into some type of thing where like you recast Baylan Skoll as, 28-year-old Baylan Skoll because he did something that returns him to his youth. He still has all the same ambitions, but now he is.
I heard Matt Smith is going to play Baylan Skoll.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. The Josh Horowitz thing.
With
you know
Matt
what I'm talking
Smith?
about?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we talked about that a while ago.
Yeah.
Did we?
We talked about it. Yeah.
I don't remember talking about
that interview was from a while ago. But Frank Grande in the comments did make something a good point. He said they recasted War Machine and Iron Man 2 and nobody really cared. That's totally true. So maybe that's what they're gonna do, or maybe they're gonna do a Mark Hamill in Empire Strikes Back where like he gets attacked by an animal and then all of a sudden he has a new face and or a mask.
Gosh.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Who knows?
John, any other thoughts on this image? What are you thinking?
No, yeah, it's bittersweet because you know how much I always liked Ray Stevenson, and I thought he was just so great as Baylan. So whatever they do, it's going to be so hard for me to not like think about him and compare whoever takes over. But I am excited that they are doing more because it's like a massive cliffhanger, like maybe the biggest out of all of Star Wars in terms of how many threads they left open. So I'm glad that they're doing it on Disney Plus so that whatever they establish with whatever this journey to, I assume, Mortis is, or maybe something else, a different version of Mortis in this galaxy. I don't know what it's going to get weird. I'm just glad that they're going to be able to tell that here, and whatever the outcome of this in Ahsoka season 2 will establish the characters enough to play their role in whatever that climactic battle against Thrawn will be in that movie. So I like it. I enjoyed Ahsoka a lot. I thought for something that was filmed in the volume, it might have been one of the better looking of the series that were filmed in the volume, maybe the best. So I like it. I'm down. I'm very excited that they are going to do this. And also Rosario Dawson is incredible, and I'm very happy for her, because let's not forget, there was a massive strike on multiple unions going on, and she couldn't go sit on Fallon's couch and talk about how excited she is. And we know how personable she is, how down to earth and excitable she is. She loves fans. She couldn't do that, so now she gets a chance to do that. So I'm very excited for that as well, and the fact that this series endured all of that and we're able to get more of it. So I'm all for it. Let's do Ahsoka season 2 and then see where it goes.
Well, it makes lots of sense, and we just got through 2 stories that make lots of sense. Let's move on to one that doesn't really. The Game of Thrones creators Benioff and Weiss are marketing their new movie, and a little bit of what has happened since the last time you've seen them. Hey, we had that Star Wars thing. Hey, we went and we were trying to do this Confederate thing. Now we're doing this other thing. So they were kind of going through all these different things with Hollywood Reporter. And of course, like I said, the Star Wars movie sort of got brought up. And the long story short of it, because they didn't talk much about it, but it had to do with the fact that they were going to do this movie called The First Jedi. And they were really excited about it. And I think it was sort of a tongue-in-cheek joke, because they obviously have been working with Rian Johnson, but they make the joke like, why did this guy have to go call his movie The Last Jedi? We're trying to do The First Jedi. Because this was a long time ago. This was obviously before Last Jedi was even released. And they had this idea about what it would be like to see the first Jedi and see the first lightsaber, and what is this character, and how does that go from there. But ultimately Lucasfilm made a decision that they didn't want to do that. They wanted to go in a different direction. And so I guess they just got rid of these creators and just said, we're not moving forward with that movie anymore. The reason I say it's a little bit of a head scratcher is because now we have James Mangold telling the story of the origin of the Force, and it's really not that different. I'm assuming maybe you could say, here's why it's different. It's, in a different timeline or whatever. But I even speculated when James Mangold was first around that Benioff and Weiss were propositioned to do this movie about the first Jedi, the origin of the Force, the origin of the Jedi. And then they said yes, but then they changed their mind and backed out. And so they got James Mangold to tell the same story. I don't know that that's necessarily what's going on, but it seems similar to me enough that it's a little bit of a I don't get why you were so opposed to Benioff and Weiss, and now all of a sudden you want to do it with James Mangold. But I don't know. John, what do you think of these comments? Do you think I'm way off base?
Didn't they leave though? They left.
No. Well, not according to them.
Not according to them in this article.
Oh, that's so confusing, because initially when it happened, it sounded like they left because they got a contract with Netflix.
So the truth is coming out now, and they were being classy and respectful back then. And let's not forget, this was their project was announced 6 years ago now. I believe it was January 2018 or February 2018. And Game of Thrones, people still liked Game of Thrones. So these guys were white hot at the time. Kathleen Kennedy, again, ear to the ground. Who's popular? Let's bring him in. That was sort of what we feel like they had been doing. Patty Jenkins after the first Wonder Woman, we saw how that worked out. But with Benioff and Weiss, they were given a trilogy, or no. It was a series of films is what it was called. Right. They were going to create a series of films. And now we know that they were pitching this, old school looking, probably in the style of Game of Thrones, medieval. So almost like Old Republic-ish. And I remember them saying back then, because I'd written an article about it, and the only thing they had said about it was, we wanted to go hundreds of years back with the Jedi or something like that. And then remember we had speculated about High Republic and why is this Project Luminous being delayed, and we thought it might have been connected in some weird way,
right?
But
or Old Republic, they are saying the games is similar.
The games, yeah. So they're saying we wanted to do the first Jedi, and Lucasfilm ended up not wanting to do a first Jedi story. This is a quote, we had a very specific story idea in mind, and ultimately they decided they didn't want to do that. And we totally get it. It's their company, their IP, but we weren't the droids they were looking for.
I like that they said that. Well done.
Yeah, and I think this would have been awesome because I really Game of Thrones, like people will get mad about the final season. Whatever. These guys made one of the greatest. These guys made one of the greatest television shows of all time, and they made TV look cinematic to the point where no one had before. It's a massive achievement, and I don't care what anybody says. It's one of the greatest shows ever, and I know it's based off source material, but you still have to make the show, and you have to capture these performances and tell these stories, and I think this would have been really, really cool. Now, what's so interesting about it is, all of a sudden, like, how do you bring someone on, officially announce that they're going to do not just one, but a series of movies, and then reject their idea? And the only thing I could think of is that based off of the reaction to the end of Game of Thrones, Kathleen Kennedy was like reading the tea leaves online, and they're like, let's try to get out of this deal. And they were like, well, Netflix wants to give us $250 million. So that's cool. You know, whatever. We'll talk about it in a few years. And now they're here saying they want to do this first Jedi thing. And James, to your point, James Mangold now is doing what they called on the timeline of Celebration, Dawn of the Jedi. So it's essentially the same idea, except Mangold wants to do like make it like a 10 Commandments of the Force or whatever. So it just seemed like they didn't want to work with them. Not the idea. They just didn't want to work with them. And I think it's because people were so upset about the end of Game of Thrones. That's my theory. People may disagree with that, and that's okay. It's just my thoughts on it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense because it's the same concept. So I wish they did, because I do like these guys. I think they're down to earth. I think they're earnest. I think they're classy and respectful in the way that I think J.J. Abrams is. He doesn't, go after fans. They don't go after fans who hated Game of Thrones. They could have, they didn't. So I'm a little disappointed that we're not going to get to see what they wanted to do. But at the same time, there's nothing else we can do about it. So it's another bittersweet thing. I actually like the title, The First Jedi, because I think that's pretty cool to juxtapose that against Luke Skywalker, at the time being the last Jedi.
And it's smart for like on the marquee.
Yeah.
Like,
so
I didn't even know a new Star Wars movie is out. Is that a Star Wars movie?
Right. So it's just in another universe, another timeline. It exists, but not in this one. And unfortunately, that's the case for me anyway.
It's just, Lacey, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting that in the past year or so, we've gotten all these kind of people coming out of the woodwork, and not these guys specifically, but all these different creators saying that they want to make Star Wars movies, or they've pitched Star Wars movies, or they one time had a conversation with Kathleen Kennedy about a Star Wars movie. And it seems like it's happening all recently, but these guys obviously were in it a little bit more than that. But I can't help but think of Lord and Miller when I read these stories, that they were in it, and they were going to do it, and they were working on it, and they're trying to be like, oh, well, we're not the droids they were looking for, wink, wink. Or Damon Lindelof, where he was just like, well, I guess it's not they were looking for. Patty Jenkins, I guess it just didn't work out. And I'm sitting here going, this is all coincidence, right? Like, this isn't an ongoing issue. This is just like everyone just has an issue, the personal in a bubble situation. It's not an overall data point of how Lucasfilm is operating. But it's an interesting story. I don't care for it because I'm not really into that idea. I think I would be into it when it came out. I'd be like, oh, right, Star Wars, cool. But I'm more pumped for like the Mandalorian and Grogu, which I feel like most people weren't, but I was or am. Just like the James Mangold thing, I'm not really excited for, but I'm more excited for the Rey movie or the Dave Filoni movie, because it's more what comes next and not let's go back. I don't like this whole trend of doing prequels to things. Like, how did we get to blank? I'm like, I don't need to know that. I just need to know what comes after blank. I don't need to know how it led up to like, The Walking Dead, how that started, or how did President Snow become President Snow in the Hunger Games. Like, I don't need to know that. I just want to know, how does Katniss handle the situation and move on? And this is one of those situations that like, okay, if someone likes that, like John just said that he's really into it, that's cool. He really likes Game of Thrones. I have never watched one episode of Game of Thrones. I have no interest in watching Game of Thrones.
Oh, God.
So these guys don't have that appeal to me, but the idea that for me behind the scenes, it's time after time these people are coming forward saying that they've either tried or it's not worked out. Like we could put on our hand things that, you know, multiple people. So James Mangold with Boba Fett didn't work out, right? We got these guys, Lord and Miller, Patty Jenkins, Ryan Johnson, seemingly, they're not going to admit it, but seemingly Ryan Johnson. Who else has not worked out? That guy from Haunted Mansion.
Did you say Colin Trevorrow?
Colin Trevorrow. I'm thinking who else. Like,
well, you didn't say Lindelof, but there's all sorts of stuff with Solo or Lando. I mean,
well, the guy from Haunted Mansion, I had said that, Justin, whatever his name is.
Oh yeah, that's
So like that's just off the top of my head. That's 8 people in the past 4 years.
I actually pictured somebody else. Wasn't it like JD Willard or something?
JD Dillard.
Yeah. That's who I thought you were saying.
Sean Levy's supposedly making a movie, but he's not on the slate or being talked about or anything. Then you have Marvel blanking right now. Kevin Feige, who was supposed to make a movie, now he's not making a movie.
Yeah.
So like this is now we're getting into 10 plus people that are like, yeah, I was, but now I'm not.
And most of those people are
projected or whatever.
And most of those people are big names. Now, to be fair too, like
that were pumped to be a part of it. You have to remember that all these people came out and said this was a dream project for me, but it was seemingly bad enough that they walked away from said project.
When it really stings is when the people that were part of Star Wars end up doing something else that was pretty cool.
Sure.
And I mean, that obviously goes for not Benioff and Weiss, because we haven't seen their stuff yet, but it's
Lord Miller,
the Solo guys, Lord and Miller. Yeah, obviously they're just completely crushing it. Ryan Johnson also crushing it with movies and stuff that people really are enjoying. So, you know, it's
by the way, really quick note, Ryan Johnson supposedly is releasing a Last Jedi photo book, and it's coming out in October of this year.
The black and whites?
And it's listed on Amazon as a book that's coming out in October.
Oh, very cool.
But like there's no info, it's just like a placeholder, but it's like The Director and the Jedi, the book or something, and it's by Ryan Johnson, and oh my god, am I excited.
Wow, I can't wait to see those photos online.
Or on t-shirts, you know, people are going to take them and put them on t-shirts.
Totally, yeah.
Can I download it on my black and white Kindle? Just like, flip there.
Yeah, we just take all of Ryan Johnson's photos and just write our logo on top of it, and then just put it on TeePublic. Like, just buy some TRB merch.
I don't think Ryan would like that very much.
No. Well, we'll just do Tali Lintra. How about that? That's all.
Oh, jeez.
By the way, before
she's dead though. Cheers, Tali.
She is dead. Before we move to this last little story, I wanted to ask you guys. I said the thing about Matt Smith, and you're like, we talked about that, but I looked it up. It was 6 days ago, so we obviously didn't talk about it. Are you just saying, did you see that story and then you were like,
no, we talked about Matt Smith, like talked about it
over the summer. He talked about it.
Yeah, he told everything about it in an interview, and we talked about it because I had joked about how I had known, you know, the whole time that he was involved, and that the last minute before they went to production, they changed.
I guess he
everything.
didn't say much more than but it was just a few days ago that he was on with Josh Horowitz or whatever, and he was like,
he said it to Josh to begin with. That was
I know. I remember that too. Yeah, but he's like, man, it would have like changed everything. Like the whole story had to be redone because I wasn't in it or whatever. Yeah. Anyway. But let's move on to this last thing here, because we were just talking about Daisy Ridley's story and how Lacey's excited for that one more than anything. But we got her talking a little bit about that project that's coming up. Now, granted, it's from a French channel, TF1, from Regina Driver on X. But I do have that if we want to go ahead and just watch that right now.
I haven't read a script, but the idea for the story is amazing. And if I wasn't excited, I would have said, like, I'm good. But I was so excited by the story, I'm really excited to come back. Do I miss my lightsaber? I actually have a lightsaber in a safe somewhere.
La force sera avec toi. Toujours.
I've seen that you have some kind of a little curse in your movie.
This made me laugh.
Really?
In Star Wars, because Han Solo once.
Oh my god! Okay.
Then he dies.
Yeah, he does.
Keep going. Keep going.
That's it.
Oh,
It's about her other movie after that.
yeah,
They
the
just got away
clips
from
go on and they say, so you were in this movie and the person dies, and then you're in this movie and the person dies. So is there something about it that you're always killing your love interests?
Yeah. I was curious because I didn't watch past that because I was like, oh, that's the Star Wars thing. I wonder if it had something to do with the movie that she's currently in or something.
Yes,
But
it does.
it does. So,
She looks so good.
yeah,
Daisy's
go for it,
so-
Lacey. What excited you about this? There were a couple things that were sort of stated in like text on the screen, but it was also in French, so we can kind of break down what we translated that as. But what was your takeaway from her saying this stuff?
Yeah, so she was basically asked how she's feeling about the new movie and what she knows about it, and she says she doesn't have a script yet, but she knows the concept and she thinks it's amazing. So she's going with it. And I'm surprised John hasn't done the voice yet. I'm waiting for him to.
What voice?
You know what voice. But that and, just hearing her talk about how she has her lightsaber and it's in a safe somewhere, that's where I would put mine as well. Like that thing's not going anywhere. And then she went on to say that with the clip about her romantic interest dying, the joke was like, hey, what genre would you want to do? Would you ever want to do a romance or something like that? And she goes on to say, yes, the first thing I wanted to do when I left Star Wars was a rom-com. Like I said, like, please let me do a rom-com. And I'm sitting here going, this is the absolute dream project for me. Guys, do you understand if Daisy really ever did a rom-com? Like, I'd be like, that's all I'm talking about for the rest of time, because that's like my two things meeting in one place, rom-coms and Star Wars. But then she also did a couple other videos because they broke the interview up a little bit about how she handled being in Star Wars. And she said, when I first watched Star Wars, I started crying. She was like a deep body cry of, I thought I was the worst person ever. I thought I was terrible. I thought I wasn't good enough. I thought I ruined Star Wars. And all in my head I could think of is like, how did anybody make this woman feel this way? Like, how could anybody consciously go, I'm going to put this energy out in the world so that then this person feels this way. This person feels terrible.
Sorry, maybe I misunderstood that. Was she talking about after the movie came out? Because I took it as like during the process, she was like, I'm so bad and wooden and I'm doing a horrible job, imposter syndrome. I shouldn't be here.
That's how I took it too.
I took it she watched the movie and felt bad about herself.
Well, I know
but
early
it could go
on,
either way, regardless, it's about herself. But then also, I'm sure she heard pressures from outside world.
Yeah.
And then the other clip that I saw, which I really enjoyed, was a clip of her talking about that big casting photo that they posted online initially when TFA was reading for the script. And she just talks through how amazing it was to sit with all these great people and sit between Harrison and Carrie. And then how she went to the bathroom 15 times because she was so nervous. But then also the thing that made me laugh is she said that they went through the whole script. And then afterwards, JJ told her and John Boyega they had to go to immediately to go practice with him because they were so bad. That he was like, no, we're going to go handle these lines, which ultimately we know because the Harrison Ford accident happened with his ankle where that whole leg, the blast door.
He had closed on
Falcon door.
Yeah,
that
was an actual hydraulic door. It wasn't just a prop door. Fell on him and JJ pulled his back out trying to lift it off Harrison. Because that accident happened, it forced them to rework the script and give John and Daisy more moments together and more lines. So it's interesting to hear how that process began where they were like, oh, we're not that good. And then they basically carried the movie at some parts because they had to. And I think they were both amazing and they've gone on to do really cool movies. I just hope they hit their stride of being the super megastars that I think they can be. And I think John Boyega is getting there because he's doing some amazing movies lately, like really critically acclaimed top movies. But we'll see. I obviously
Top
Daisy's
Men.
Is he in Top Men? Is that a movie?
It's a quote.
But yeah, so Daisy's doing Star Wars now, and I really hope that John comes back. I know he's openly been like, nah, I'm not interested. And Oscar's now coming around being like, well, maybe. So we'll see what happens. But I just, every time I see Daisy talking about Star Wars and it's a good positive reaction from her, it just makes me happy. It really does.
So it's funny. I have not seen any movie with Daisy Ridley in it except for Star Wars.
I saw the train one. What was it? Murder on Orient Express.
Yeah, I saw that too.
She was okay. In the sense that the role was okay. Not that she wasn't good.
So, yeah. And so I kind of look at this and she's like, I wouldn't come back if it wasn't a great story, but I haven't read the script. I'm like, I think you would have came back regardless. I kind of just don't buy her statement. I'm not saying I'm not excited for it. I just think like when she says that, like if it was like an okay idea, I probably wouldn't have come back. And I'm like, I think you probably would have come back regardless of what the idea is. But I mean, that doesn't take away from me being excited that she's made that choice, or in her mind, her career is like Rey, you know, like Rosario Dawson is not, her only career is not Ahsoka, but she's like, oh, I love Ahsoka. I want to be Ahsoka. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine if Daisy Ridley, like it wants to embrace that. Like I'm Rey, you know, Carrie Fisher was, I am Princess Leia, you know, that's cool. So I'm excited that that she wants to come back, even if it does seem on the surface, at least in this one interview, that it's like, to me, that it's just like how I can't really pass that up. It's too big of an opportunity to not continue to play the main Star Wars character, the lead in Star
seemingly
Wars
for
movies.
more than one movie. Yeah.
It just seems like whatever it ends up being, I'm down. Let's try to get the right people in place. And get a good story going on. But I mean, she hasn't even read the script, and that's like the number one thing that people say about Hollywood is like, they don't even want to sign on unless they can at least read the script. And she's like, the idea was so awesome, I just had to join. Yeah, but I don't know. John, what do you think of this?
Well, I love Daisy Ridley. She's always so charming, and I love how emotive her face is. Like her reactions to questions and stuff is just so
amazing.
And her eyes, just like she's like that, you know. But
I wanted to end that video clip with not her eyes closed, and then I was like, she closes her eyes for like 10 seconds, and then I was like, she's just like talking like this the whole time. At the end, I was like, oh my gosh.
I believe her when she's saying what she's saying. I mean, that's the thing. The only thing about this whole thing with this movie that she's doing is, whether it's the director or her or anybody, it's just too vague in what they're talking about. And it's just like, I want to get the hook. Like I said that, I think like last week, it's like, I can't get too excited until I get to figure out exactly what she's excited about, because everything they're saying is sort of like how I was in high school when I didn't like do my reading and I was called on.
Oh, geez.
And I'm just like skimming through what I saw on the back of the book. So I need some deets. I need some details. That's all. But I do think that she does love being Rey, because I think another part of this, from this clip that was posted, they asked her, are you more like your character in this new movie, or are you more like Rey? And she says, well, I'm definitely not like Rey because I don't have the fate of the galaxy on my back. And I'm like, that's a really cool like quote. That's a really cool line. So she does love being Rey. I think she understands the responsibility of Rey being the hero to a lot of young kids who are now going to be almost teenagers by the time her movie comes out. And again, like, I've been saying this for a while, they're going to become the voices of fandom. So everyone who's, hating on the character or not vibing with Rey and, Luke Skywalker is my Star Wars, that's all good. It's there. Luke's not going anywhere. You can go watch those movies anytime you want. These kids are going to have the voice the way the prequels kids now have their voice about Hayden Christensen, who was annihilated for years for his wooden performances or whatever. And those kids are like, no, that's our guy. And now look at Hayden being so embraced. And he gets a louder pop at Celebration than George Lucas does, which to me is insane. But it's what it is, because that generation are the loudest voices now and spending their money to go to these conventions or whatever. And that's gonna be Daisy Ridley when her movies come out. Like, the people who hate it are going to get drowned out by people saying like, no, she's our Luke Skywalker, she's our hero. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But again, not to be cliche, I just hope they come up with a really good story that's not just new Jedi Order and Rey is starting an academy, and it's just like, give me something new, give me something fresh, give us something exciting and different that also has a tinge of that nostalgia, which they can easily do by peppering in all of our old familiar evergreen characters like Chewie and the droids and all that. So I'm still very excited for it. I'm still a little nervous because of everything that's been going on with the director. And it's not that, here's the thing about like the director and her politics and her comments. It's not that, oh, she said these things 8 years ago and she's challenging political conventions and stuff. It's like, I understand that because I looked into it. But the casual Star Wars fans are just going to see these headlines and say, this woman hates me and I'm not going to go see that movie. And that's a problem. Like, that's going to be a problem. I'm not saying it is, because I understand when she said it and what she said, but most people don't look into things. And most people see headlines, even garbage made up headlines on Facebook, which is a litter of trash at this point.
Or memes, honestly.
They see it. It looks like it's a real article. So they're like, wow, she says she wants to make me uncomfortable. I'm not spending $12 and I'm not taking my kids to go see that movie. It is going to be a problem. So they're going to need to figure that out. But my hope is that it is good, because I think Daisy Ridley is good for Star Wars. I hope she still loves being in it, even after this next movie. She's went through a lot and still came back, which I admire. And with a franchise where people are trying to make it feel like it's not cool to be a part of it anymore, now Marvel's taken that dip, and I think it's time for Star Wars to get back on top. And I like that Daisy's like, no, I went through all that, and I want to come back because I want to be a part of this, and I will root for her every day for doing that.
Also, Kathleen Kennedy's a great producer if she's able to convince Daisy Ridley to come back.
Kathleen Kennedy is one of the greatest producers of all time.
I'm just saying, they had a lunch like a while ago, and everyone was like, what does that mean?
That must have been I wonder what she got. Well, like if it was a bad meal, do you think it would have changed everything?
What's that office meal where like Jim orders it and then everybody orders it around the table?
Oh yeah, I forget what it was. But anyway.
I forget what the meal is, but yeah, you can see it like they're like, what will you have? And Kathleen Kennedy says whatever it is, and then literally like all the way around, like everybody orders the same things. Kathleen Kennedy. Or it wasn't Jim. It was I don't know who it was. Yeah,
I'm pretty
it was
sure Daisy Ridley's vegan, so it had to be something specific to her.
Never thought about it like that before.
There it is.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I was gonna say
hey,
too,
Daisy?
because
I'm back.
we were just talking about Kathleen Kennedy. It's like this was the Lindelof movie, right? That he was writing. He was writing the story, and for some reason he just like couldn't crack it. And I'm like, that guy couldn't crack it, you know? He says like, yeah, it's just that if I can't seem to get it to be great, then I shouldn't be writing it. And he backs out. And I'm like, man, like what is this story that it just has to be, you know, that? And they weren't able to get that guy to figure it out. And they brought in Jordan, who is it? Something Knight.
Stephen Knight from Peaky Blinders.
Knight. Yeah.
You're saying Jordan Knight? Were you?
I was like, that's not right.
That's why I got
like,
confused. I was like, what are we talking about?
James is hanging tough tonight.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's a new kid.
Yeah, I was like, that name doesn't sound right. That's not who it is, but it's something like that. Stephen Knight.
Stephen Knight. Yeah. Well, and who knows?
Yeah,
maybe he gets canned. Who knows?
And that's what I'm saying. Is like I just stuff about this movie is I'm like if he couldn't figure it out, you expect this guy to figure it out, and then you got this other director which has all these like other things that are making people question like if they want to go see that movie just because like she has baggage with her or whatever. It's just it's all so crazy to me, like the fact that it's not that the Rey movie is happening. I think that's very smart. but it just seems like a lot of the decisions or the lead up to it is very odd. Yeah, JJ, he said
Bring him back.
another Star Wars movie. He's coming back, and then John
JJ
Williams is like, all right, fine. I have to write another
I don't
song
think
for my lady.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about this on Will of the Force, but I don't think John Williams is going to come back to do this movie. Lacey, what do you? He said he's not retiring, but
I think he will.
You think he'll do this movie?
I think he'll do a theme for it. He's been doing one-offs now. You don't think he's going to come back for Daisy Ridley? They literally write handwritten letters to each other.
That's cute.
Yeah, it's adorable. They're pen pals. So
I would love for him to.
You don't think he's going to be like, "Oh, Daisy needs a theme. I got you."
By the time that movie comes out, he's going to be like 95.
He could be writing it already. Once he knows the concept, he doesn't need more than that.
He did. He said it was like, if the right movie comes along, I'd be willing to come out of retirement.
Daisy. Wink, wink.
So maybe that's all like
he could literally be writing it right now.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, let's wrap up Resistance Report. I hope everybody tossed in their Ask the Resistance questions, because that is the next segment. So should I throw up the graphic? Let's throw up the graphic. Ask the Resistance. Here we go.
Go.
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
It is time for Ask the Resistance, and Lacey, we have the super chats to get to first,
right?
And then hopefully we can get to a couple more. So let's get cracking here first. Now that was Diamond Figs. Thanks, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Your videos are always fun, so go check out Diamond Figs. Good guy, fun guy. He said, "What's good, y'all? Interested to hear who y'all think." So clearly he's from the Northeast. He said, "Interested to see who y'all think the villain of the Mando film will be. Thrawn, another Force user. Stay well, TRB."
John threw me for a loop with the whole like, this came in now, and now Dave Filoni's is something different. So yeah. I don't really know.
I also think it's Thrawn. I think Thrawn's going to be the villain for the Rebels crew. I think it's going to be something affiliated with Gideon, because like, unless something wild happens in season 4 of Mando, which we're still assuming is happening, they built up that villain and he quote unquote dies, but we know how Star Wars is, you never know. So I think it's got to be something to do with him. And also, Giancarlo Esposito is such a good actor. I'm leaning still towards that. I can't, knowing Favreau, he's such a good storyteller. I can't see him do some sort of big pivot. But it really, I'm going to cop out here. It really depends on what they do in season 4, if that happens. But I don't think it's Thrawn. I think Thrawn is going to be Filoni's deal in his movie. And I don't think these movies are going to be as connected as some people may think. Okay.
Here's my answer. I think that what I have a problem with the movie being is the finale of everything you've been watching from seasons 1 through season 4. I don't get that move necessarily. So what I actually think might happen here is they do sort of wrap everything up in season 4, and then season 5 is, or not season 5, sorry, the movie is completely unrelated to what's been happening in the show. It is an all new adventure, Mandalorian and Grogu fighting a new threat, and means you don't have to have seen the series. Don't worry about that. It's all new. Come and see it. You've heard about it. It's great. Characters will sort of walk you through and introduce you to them again. But it's an all new adventure for the audience that maybe hasn't been watching The Mandalorian.
So all new villain, you're saying too. All right,
100%.
Lacey,
yep.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with James. I think it's going to be something completely new, because they can't assume that everybody's seen the Mandalorian seasons before the movie. And anytime we have seen something jump from, TV to movie, it's always that. It's always like, hey, there's little Easter eggs here and there for people that have seen the TV show that know that we're what we're talking about. However, if someone came in fresh, they put in moments that you understand what happened in the previous one, but you don't have to have watched it. I think it's going to be something that will be hinted at in the seasons, but it's going to be bigger and crazier than anything we've seen before, because it's a movie and they have to do that.
All right. Cool.
All right.
All right. Now we got to Miles's question before, so let's go to Freezy 2324, who said, "Will we see Han, Luke, or Leia in the Mando movie. Lacey, what do you think?
I think we'll see Luke. I don't know about the other two. The other two are tricky because I don't know if they'll ever touch Leia right now, especially in that time period. And I don't think they'll touch Han either. You might mention them, but the Luke thing is like, once you get the sign off from Mark Hamill that it's okay, which they did, I think Luke is more likely than the other two.
Hamill's
You're
like,
saying for a recast?
No,
No,
that we'll see them in the Mando movie. It could be either a recast or, you know, what they've already done so far with the CG mix.
Deepfake. Yeah.
Yeah, deepfake. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think yes, at least Luke. But the one that's tricky to me is Han, and that's because you already have someone cast as a younger Han, and this is like an in-between Harrison spot. But I think they could pull off Leia, so Leia may be possible too. But I think Luke seems more likely. But I'm gonna say yes because this is the big screen, and I think they saw such a big from that season 2 finale.
James also doesn't want to get pied again. There's also that.
That was
ridiculous. That's why I lost the pie bet. It's like such a ridiculous, complete out of left field. Like, do you think the next director that will be announced is this random director? And it's like, no. And it was. I'm like, what the heck? It's just like so random. Yeah. Will anyone show up in TV?
So
Luke?
I'm gonna go with a like very detailed prediction here. So, and it's gonna be wrong and whatever. But
are you gonna pie bet on it?
No, because I think this is too.
Come on.
Well, let me say it first, and then we'll see. All right. So I think Luke will appear in the Mandalorian movie. It will be in the same styling that he appeared in the series, because Lucasfilm is all about continuity and the suspension of disbelief. So this Luke will look like Mark Hamill. Hopefully, still not wearing the same black tunic, but who knows? But I think what will happen is the movie will end Mando's story. There's a good shot he dies, because in Westerns that happens a lot.
Luke?
Mando.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know you're kidding, because I saw the movies that came after you, goof. All right. So I think if Mando dies, the movie could end with Luke taking Grogu again and taking him to his academy. But when the attack happens, Grogu escapes and goes into exile and hiding. It's like poetry, it rhymes, like Yoda did. And then he resurfaces to be with Rey in the Rey movie. And then we get to continue with an older Grogu. He's marketable. He helps that movie. And away we go. So I think Luke will serve in the Mando movie. I don't think he's going to be anything in the middle or the beginning. I think he'll pop up sort of at the end as a surprise little cliffhang cameo so they'll be able to complete Din Djarin's story, but let us know that there is a future for Grogu, and Luke will be the vehicle for that.
I hate all of that so much.
I disagree. Yeah,
I'm kind of like,
I hear what you're saying, but I'm not on board with that theory.
It seems like, hey, how do we get from here to here? Let's put this Band-Aid. Like, that's what that story is to me. A Band-Aid. Like,
it seemed a little bit like, let's tell the story that we already told, and this time we'll make it for real.
And
it's like,
you both know how I feel about people dying. I don't know why people seem to think like a person's story has to end with them dead. Like, that's not a thing. That doesn't have to be the end all be all.
Oh, it's a thing.
No, it doesn't have to be the thing. That's what I'm saying. It's like, we can have a happy ending where Grogu and Mando ride off into the sunset together and we never see them again. Like, it doesn't have to be Mando dies, is what I'm saying. I get very triggered by the idea that we're like killing all our characters all the time. It just really bothers me. Life sucks enough as it is.
Or how about this, Lacey? How about instead, Din Djarin fakes his death and then he rolls up on Omera and he's like,
"You've already said this before, blah, 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 black man joke, blah,
what will make you happy? What will make you happy, Lacey? I gave you, he dies, he lives.
He doesn't die. He merges with the Force, and then Ben Solo's there, and they do like a best friends handshake thing.
There we go.
James, I think it's insulting that you think that that's the ending I want to this story. I'm going to be honest. That's pretty insulting that you think it has to be related to Ben Solo to be a good ending. And I
think Lacey wants a Mando frozen in carbonite.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm relating it because Ben Solo was the other one who didn't die. He merged.
You want them to be happily ever after. Yeah.
Right off into the sunset, which is also a Western thing.
But do you think Bye Bye Grogu then? Like his story ends?
But that doesn't end anything. They ride off to the sunset. It just leaves it open-ended.
Yeah.
So I hope Grogu can come back at any time. I just don't think Din has to die to make Grogu's story move forward.
I agree. Like I said,
and I hate the Batman joke that you make every time you talk about someone dying, that they show up at a cafe somewhere with a female character.
It would be fairly refreshing to just say like, and then they went away and they never had any more adventures. And then when we see Grogu again, you're able to kind of just say, yeah, I was with him for a long time and eventually he didn't make it, or whatever. And it's still, that's a nicer way for him to pass on, but never like abandon Grogu or abandon their friendship or something along those lines. But I still think that causes problems because then it makes people go like, well, where was he? Why wasn't he helping out when all these other things were going on? And I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. We've all asked that question. Where were all these people? Like, where was this? Well, we know where Ahsoka was. She's dead. Where was Ezra? Where was Din? Where was, Hera? Where was,
well,
I still feel like I have a fairly good answer for that. And it's just that the story doesn't show you what they're doing at the time, but they are helping. They are involved. But the story just doesn't show you that. The movies don't show you that.
Well,
they're not the main characters that you're following.
Yeah, they claim there's a ghost ship there, and then there's, other ships that there's so many that they could say, hey, this ship is here.
Right. Oh, yeah. I'm even talking just about like in like the original trilogy too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what were some of these characters doing? Well, we know where Ezra was now, but like, some of these other ones were kind of questionable.
Sure.
Let's get to one more question.
Okay.
For the sake of time, unfortunately, because I see a bunch of good ones here. So, I don't know, Lacey, pick
say the name. Go.
We can do them quick.
Let's do Kenny's second one. Let's do Kenny's second one. Kenny Craley, what's up, buddy? Thank you so much. He's always just touting us on social media and stuff. You're a good dude. Thank you, buddy. He said, do you guys think Hasbro will put out new Star Wars Black Series 6-inch figures for us to collect? The more Star Wars figures, the better. Have they slowed down on Black Series? I haven't been keeping up. So
no.
Okay.
So I chatted with Hasbro about, I think 2 weeks ago. I have to put the video up, guys. I'm so sorry. The video. I chatted with Hasbro about just basically about stuff they did this year, and they don't really go into ever what they're doing in the future. They usually say like, I can't comment on what's to come, but the one announcement they did make is that this next coming year is going to be focused on the prequels. I believe specifically Revenge of the Sith, or it might be all the prequels. I can't remember if it was one or the other. It's something like that, but I remember thinking like, oh, we're back to the prequels again, like, because I just want sequel trilogy stuff, and I want Solo. Like, Solo has that Suboxone with all those different aliens, and they did nothing for those aliens, and it drives me bananas. It drives me crazy. But to answer your question, Kenneth, they are making new 6-inch figures. They're dedicating them mostly to the prequel trilogy films this coming year. But I think they're putting out slowly kind of Mando stuff too. So there will be more coming up. They didn't really say anything else than that. I know that we've discussed it here on the show that the Lucasfilm schedules kind of changed a lot, especially because of the strikes and whatnot. So I'm sure they didn't say this, but I'm sure behind the scenes that probably impacted it in some way because they can't release certain figures if those shows haven't come out. So I'm interested to see if they do something for Skeleton Crew or more Andor figures.
I was going to say Andor too felt a little light.
Yeah, I'd love for them to come out with the show and not after the show. So we'll see how that goes. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Nice. All right. I got nothing else on that one. So let's.
And I'll get that video up shortly.
Yeah. And also, we got to go public with the pie video.
That's going up tomorrow.
Yeah,
And
it
for
is.
people that are listening to this tomorrow,
Friday
it's
Pie Day.
Friday.
You know what I mean?
Friday
Yeah.
Pie Day.
You guys want to see me smash pies in Lacey and James' face in London? Check out the channel tomorrow. Patrons can already see it in all its glory, and I see that they're loving it in the comments on there. But all right, last question before we get out of here. First of all, thanks to everybody for hanging out. We've held the audience pretty strong, so thank you so much. Hope you're having a good time, because we are. We actually are heading to Patreon right after this for our live Q&A, where you can ask us anything, not just Star Wars. So if you are a patron or if you're thinking about signing up, it's a good time to do it. But let's go to Casey Barkle.
Casey.
Who asked, this is from Facebook. Cool. Thank you. Given its theatrical nature, I believe Pedro will be on set and show his face. But didn't he just double down on the cult in season 3 after spending 2 seasons moving away from it? So my quick thing on this is things change. And when they did this double down with Mando in season 3, I think a big part of that was because Pedro was unavailable. Last of Us was filming. They had to incorporate that. I think things are going to change because it's a movie now, and it's a Jon Favreau major motion picture, and money is a thing, and voice is paid differently than on set. A lot of things go into this, and I just have a feeling that things are going to change.
I have a wild theory. You ready for it? It is that he is going to continue to double down. He's going to leave the helmet on. He wants to leave the helmet on. And even after the Mandalorian struggle or whatever, the armor is going to sit him down and say, you realize, like, we can't do this. We have to, like, break up this Children of the Watch, this idea, this cult, this idea. And he says, I'll never abandon that. And she's going to remove her helmet in front of him to prove that she's being very serious, which is going to lead him to also need to do it. And from that point on, it's going to be acceptable. But I think that could be like, it could be the end of, you know, their group, you know, their small little gathering. If like Bo-Katan is getting back these Mandalorians on the planet Mandalore and they're rebuilding everything, this small little group might not last. It might break down. And then, and she says, like, look, we don't have to be that anymore. The Children of the Watch are dead. And she removes her helmet and we see her, you know, and I don't know. I just think the whole idea could be quickly flipped around if the armor is the person that can convince him that it's a good idea. And you get that actress revealing her face too.
She wears a helmet no more.
Yeah, exactly. Lacey, what do you think?
I think that we got such a beautiful scene with Pedro in season 2 with Bill Burr where he's not wearing the helmet that it's hard for me to think of, with the exception of obviously Grogu touching his face at the end of season 2. I can't think of a better.
And the end of season 1.
Yeah, but he didn't like touch his face.
It wasn't a very moving moment necessarily, but
it was
like,
moving in the sense that he's willing to accept a droid's help. That was the big thing in season 1. Season 2, he did it for the sake of Grogu.
We've come a long way.
Yeah. It's just hard to think of why he would remove it at this point. And I think that we all collectively were like, oh man, he's going to leave this helmet on all of season 3 now. Because as soon as you're like, I'm back at it, I'm a Mandalorian again. Inside I was like, oh. And because of how busy Pedro is, like, I'm so happy for him because he's so ridiculously talented and seemingly a very good person in all the interviews I watch. Like, he just seems like so genuinely nice that I want nothing but success for him. But at the same time, I'm like, oh no, he's going to be busy on all these times. And all you hear about from Brendan Wayne and, you know, the stunt crew, which, by the way, congrats to all of them on winning all these stunt awards. So
the Emmys,
so well deserved. Like, I'm so pumped for them. And I still think that there should be an Oscar for stunt work, which I don't know why that doesn't exist. That they've been very open throughout season 3 that they're like, this was me. Like Brendan Wayne being like, oh, the poster of Grogu with him flying, like, and he's like kind of diagonally across the poster. That's him. Like he's they're both very open with when it's them in the suit. And when all you're hearing is this person being like, that was me, you're like, oh, so none of this was Pedro. And then Pedro comes out and says, oh, well, this season I did mostly voice work. Like the role is mostly a voice actor role now. Like,
but
that's
you're
sad.
saying no in the movie? He won't be in the movie?
No, I think he's going to be in the movie. It's just hard to be optimistic that he's going to be in the movie when so far it's gone the exact opposite direction, that it's gone like downhill of him showing up. I think the movie is a bigger scale, a bigger budget. They're going to pay him more. He's going to be in the movie and he's going to take the helmet off at some point.
All right.
Because everybody wants to know it's Pedro. And for people that have never watched The Mandalorian, they will not understand why he's not taking the helmet off. And they will want to see Pedro Pascal's face. So there's going to be a moment or two where he takes the helmet off. That was my long tangent of why Pedro.
And also,
you agree will be in the movie with his.
How's he going to make out with Bo-Katan if he doesn't take his helmet?
Oh my God, Dinbo is a thing. Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure we joked about Dinbo like very early on, and all of a sudden, like now people are actually using the hashtag, and I was like, yes.
I called it Manbo, I think. But
yeah, I've been calling it Dinbo for a while, but I love that like the Dinbo hashtag has been starting to get used, and I'm like, people joked about the hashtag in the beginning, and now it's actually working. And I think they deserve a moment together. He deserves to find love, just like all the other characters in Star Wars. Like they deserve happy endings and love at time. And I don't know why it's all sadness and death.
Just do it as soon as possible, please.
Well, the moment where they were on the boat, I really thought they were going to kiss at that moment. That was like such a Titanic love scene moment. And even, they joked on set that that's what that was, but it was with Brendan Wayne. So it feels.
I don't know how good of a drawer Din Djarin is, but we'll see.
What do you mean, drawer? What?
Titanic.
Oh,
yeah. Draw me like one of your Mandalorian girls.
Dinbo all the way. I'm totally shipping it. Let's go.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, watching, being a part of TRB. This was a big one, and you knew it was going to be because we had a lot to talk about. So thank you for your questions. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the conversation and just hanging out with us. It's a good time. So make sure you are subscribed on your preferred podcast app. Rate us 5 stars if you can. Spread the word. And, of course, the channel, youtube.com/@theresistance_broadcast. We got the Pie Bet cash-in video coming tomorrow. And Patreon, we're heading right there right now for our live Q&A. So be sure to join us there if you are a patron and if you want to sign up. And a special shout out to our Patreon generals and Spice Runners: Carmelo, John Risi, Jenna Rosewater, Frank Grande, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Rumore, Brendan McLaughlin, Sneaky Zebra, Colin Cormier, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, Diana and Dave Hornack, and David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gelner, Andrew Stilly, Jeremy Myers, and the Fort Worthian are the Spice Runners. For me, Johnny Hoey on most social media apps, and my movie pod, Just Like the Movies, and me smashing pies in their faces tomorrow on YouTube. Lacey, how about you?
People can find me on social media at Lacey Gilleran and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gilleran.
James.
Social media at Myra Trunks.
All right. Thank you all so much. We'll be back with you on Monday for another episode. So we hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time right here on the Resistance Broadcast. See you around, kids.